Yesterday we learned that we could have gotten years worth of Fallout and Elder Scrolls spin-offs from Obsidian, but it never happened because of Bethesda's greed, their envy, and their fear that they would be outdone by a better studio. Now, understandably, many RPG fans heard this news and they were peeved. We could have gotten a Fallout New Vegas 2, an Elder Scrolls game that had the depth, the writing quality of some of Obsidian's games. And keep in mind, this would have been Obsidian at their peak, when they were doing, in my opinion, their best work. To make up for all that, though, the good folks at Bethesda, over the years, they've released Fallout 76, the Elder Scrolls MMO that is insanely overpriced, Starfield, and if I have to think about play Starfield for one more hour, let me just say this. So I'm lucky I'm on a bottom floor of my apartment building, because if I was on a top floor, running towards my balcony would be looking good. That's how bad this game is. But enough about that. Let's talk about the insane group of people who think it's a good thing that Obsidian were never allowed to touch Fallout again, that they never got their grubby paws on the Elder Scrolls. These are fanboys who still think Bethesda have got it. These people even love Starfield as well, and they think that the only reason you don't like it is because you're not intellectually gifted enough to appreciate it. You're not a genius who can understand the depths of space like Bethesda have created. You're certainly not going to get recruited to NASA like these guys. They're getting the tap on the shoulder because they're masters of this space sim. Alright, so let's have a look at what some of Bethesda's golden warriors, their defenders, are saying. And be warned, often these people are illiterate, so I am going to have to translate. It's only to be expected from a modern-day 2023 Bethesda fan. And this person says, people are wrong in saying that Bethesda hasn't made any better games than New Vegas, as objectively, Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Starfield are miles better. And someone responds, objectively miles better? In what universe is a game like Starfield better than New Vegas? What sort of joke is that? And the guy responds, sales, Metacritic, critical reception, Metacritic. So you can bribe IGN, GameSpot, all of the mainstream publishers. You hand over a wad of cash, you get your 10 out of 10, woohoo! Objectively, it means your game is the greatest of all time. Case closed, go home, that's it. The sensible person goes on to say, that's not objective proof of anything. Or rather, that's objective proof that more people liked it, not that it's objectively better. I wouldn't even say that's true. How many people buy the annual COD? Do you think they like it? They're on a treadmill. They can't stop. They've got to keep buying. They've got to keep consuming. Every time someone buys a microtransaction, do you think they enjoyed the experience? No, it's just some 13-year-old moron with dad's credit card. They didn't internally love the experience. Sales don't mean that the product is actually great, because if a Starfield 2 released, do you think it would sell well? No, the Starfield we got, yeah, maybe it did sell well, but that was the result of previous work Bethesda had done. People expected it to be good, to play like their older games. It didn't, and if they release a sequel, hopefully some people are skeptical. Maybe not some of these people. They'll buy anything. A turd on a plate, yes, serve it up to me for sure. And then the guy who was let out of the asylum, he responds, bro, Metacritic, sales, critical reception, those are facts. Therefore, it makes those games, Starfield and so on, objectively better. If you personally like New Vegas better, then that is subjective. What is going on with this person? Can they only sleep at night if scientific fact confirms that Starfield is the best ever? It is much better than New Vegas. You can't argue with science. It actually gets better with this person as well, because after a lengthy argument about more of this, Bethesda's incredible, everything they touch turns to gold, Fallout New Vegas sucks, we get this exchange where someone actually points out that Fallout New Vegas is sitting higher in both critic and player score than Starfield is on Metacritic. And then the guy comes back, this asylum escapee says, I didn't know that an 86 was smaller than an 84, patronisingly trying to suggest that Starfield does have a higher Metacritic score. But someone breaks down these facts. Starfield got an 83, the lower user score. Fallout New Vegas was higher on both metrics, a higher critic score and a higher user score. And then Mr. Asylum, he says, no, I found a different link where Starfield is higher. Don't give me that. And of course, only the critic score matters. Who cares what the paying customers, the users, say, even though Starfield has a much lower user score than New Vegas. And he reveals the truth. You're using the console version. I'm using the PC version. I know New Vegas for some weird reason is the internet's darling, but back then it wasn't the banger people thought it was compared to Fallout 3 and Skyrim. So he's basically had to fudge the numbers, line things up perfectly to get his way to make his point stand. And he's the one who brought it up. He said games, they are judged on their critic scores and sales alone. That makes them objectively good. And when he's found out, he has to get totally desperate. And it doesn't stop there. Already got a dozen people insisting that Skyrim wasn't actually any good, and Bethesda is clearly just trying to smite a better developer. God, this place has gone to shit. Why can't everyone suck up to Bethesda, suck up to our gods, and do it the same way? We only want a hive mind, apparently. And then this same narrative keeps doing the rounds on here, where this person says that people are retroactively misunderstanding New Vegas. It was an unmitigated, broken shit show, way worse than any other broken game. When it was released, it crashed every hour. It was buggy when it came out, but people could see the quality underneath that. And it was only buggy and janky to that extent because Bethesda didn't allow Obsidian enough time to actually get things right. They only had 18 months. Bethesda had years on Fallout 3. They could do it all on their own terms. And then this person suggests that New Vegas is the reason Bethesda doesn't want to work with third-party studios anymore because they took a ton of heat back in the day. Basically implying that, Bethesda wanted to give a developer a chance, but Obsidian couldn't produce a good enough game. Poor Bethesda, they tried to outsource their IP and it all went wrong for them. They were let down. Get the fuck out of here. Nobody sane believes that. Obsidian produced a genuine gem and Bethesda felt outclassed, outperformed in just about every facet. And if you don't believe that, I thought this was interesting. It's obviously not confirmed, but it does paint a picture, and it sounds believable after all the out-of-touch comments we've had from Bethesda recently, which suggest a genuinely rotten culture. This person says, my co-worker at an old job was a playtester for Bethesda, and he left the company after the debacle with Fallout New Vegas because they were intentionally screwing with quality control, not allowing Obsidian to have their own testers, not acknowledging known and reported bugs, upper management stealing reports of bugs, pretending they found it themselves, etc. So this is Bethesda intentionally sabotaging Obsidian, the main motivation probably being because there was a Metacritic score tied to a bonus. Essentially, if Fallout New Vegas didn't reach at least an 85 Metacritic score, then they wouldn't get a big bonus. Obsidian wouldn't get paid what they'd rightly earned. And it sounds like Bethesda was scared of that. There was obviously the jealousy component, but also a financial component where they were scrounging around desperate measures to make sure this company can't produce something that scores well. And just the thought of Todd Howard sneaking around the office, stealing bug reports so Obsidian can't outclass Fallout 3, that is pretty funny. Maybe it did happen. Again, this isn't confirmed, but it's so believable these days. And on top of all this, Bethesda forcing an arbitrary deadline so Obsidian ended up releasing a subpar product. And that's what it is. The content within Obsidian's game, within New Vegas, was fantastic. This isn't like a Starfield situation. Oh, it released unfinished, they'll patch in a few things and it will be magical. No, Starfield's core is rotten, New Vegas's was fantastic, and that's why after a few months, it does feel pretty good. Sure, it's still a bit janky, maybe not the smoothest game, but Obsidian were forced to make it in the Gamebryo engine, and whenever is that smooth? He said, after the culture of the company was so bad, he stopped even wanting the job at all. And this was back in like 2010, 2011, when Bethesda were thought to be at their peak as a developer, at least in the mainstream. So if it was that bad then, what the hell is going on now? There's reports all the time of senior devs at Bethesda leaving. Why can't it be Emil? When's Emil going? But aside from that, it doesn't look good for Bethesda. Things look very, very dire indeed. Now, this one is good. Someone makes a fairly normal comment, I'd say, and then the Bethesda Defense Squad, they come out in full force. So up the top here, normal person says, Bethesda didn't like being upstage, did they? And, oh, everyone comes in with their pea shooters, they're not happy. Skyrim, which came out after New Vegas, has sold 60 million copies. I'm pretty sure they weren't worried about New Vegas, especially since it was received relatively poorly at first because it was buggy. This New Vegas meat riding thing, that only started after Fallout 4. Not really true. I mean, there's a lot of casual fans who would have played Fallout 3, they would have played Fallout New Vegas. After New Vegas, they went, gee, that was really good, that was so in-depth. I hope Bethesda's or this game company's next game is just as in-depth. And then Fallout 4 comes out, and all those people go, what the fuck's going on? What happened to my RPG? And then for the first time in their lives, they probably go online and look up game companies. Not everyone does that. Some people just play the game. They're not looking up online. What's the developer? What are they doing? So that person will then find out that Fallout 4, Fallout 3 was a totally different studio. And they probably become fans of devs like Obsidian. So what this person is saying, it's disingenuous. Everyone always liked New Vegas. It was just that when Fallout 4 came out and it was a dud, New Vegas started to get more accolades. People returned to it. It was getting more praise. Bethesda has said that they don't like working with external studios because they find it distracting. Given the state that New Vegas launched in, it's easy to see why. What about all those reports from Chris Avallone, Obsidian devs, that basically said that no one was helping them out with New Vegas. They just did their own thing. Bethesda were busy with Skyrim. This is just cope. This is just lies. Never happened. Also, given that the game that they made right after New Vegas ended up being the most popular RPG of all time, I don't think that they were feeling very upstaged. Hate to tell you, mate, but that was nearly 15 years ago. Better RPGs, far more in-depth ones have come out since. Maybe it's a hot take, but I honestly think the major reason that Skyrim was so beloved, so popular, sold so well, is because it's one of the few RPGs that was huge, open world, sprawling, at the time that came out on console. Back in the day, not a lot of huge games like that did release on the Xbox, on the PlayStation, but there were heaps of MMO RPGs, for instance, that were massively popular on PC that had bigger worlds. If you think about the game itself, it's also very casual friendly. A lot of people who enjoy Skyrim, they're not really RPG fans. They just love Bethesda games like Skyrim, like Fallout 3, because it's easy to jump in. You can play it basically as an action game. It's kind of just making your own fun. None of the RPG systems really matter for a lot of those people. The quest lines, the dialogue, the characters, a lot of those enjoyers don't care, and that's fine for them if they enjoy it. But this person is making it out like Skyrim is the most popular ever because of its RPG elements, when that's not really the case. And that's changing all the time as well. I think a lot of casual fans who are experiencing titles like Baldur's Gate, they're seeing what's possible with a role-playing game, and they're seeing that Bethesda can't really hack it. They're mediocre. Now, this one is the very definition of grasping at straws. This person says, I used to be a huge Bethesda apologist for years, and the more I get to know about them, the more I realize that they are hardly different from some of the worst, most horrendous game studios out there. The past decade of Bethesda content has been 2 words: disappointment, emptiness. And then this out-of-this-world coper responds with, "If that's true, then why does Bethesda have a higher employee retention rate compared to Obsidian? How is that relevant here, and how do you even know this? So you're desperately going online, oh, I know Bethesda doesn't make any good games anymore, but they're my beloved company. Perhaps if their retention rates have gone up, that means good things are coming. New horizons are around the corner, woohoo!" But don't you worry about any of that, because this Elder Scrolls 6 fan, he knows that Bethesda have still got it. That they're going to be saved even after Starfield. All the good signs are there. Anyone saying anything negative is just being a hater. And this post reads, "For those who are worried due to Starfield. After seeing so many posts about Starfield being a sign of doom for Bethesda and the Elder Scrolls, I just wanted to chime in with some counterpoints, or at least things to consider. Creation Engine 2. Bethesda revamped their game engine and has had to deal with all the complications of doing that. In making the Elder Scrolls 6, they're going in with a lot more experience, and hopefully many solutions for new bugs that have come, which could be common in future games. What about the loading screens? What about that, Chestnut? Because until you fix those, the other bugs don't matter. You need to either totally revamp your engine so it can actually make a 2023 standard game, or maybe just try something else. Give it up, try another engine." They're back to familiar territory. Many mechanics in Starfield, such as spaceflight, are new to the team. Spaceflight in Starfield? I don't remember that. Someone will have to refresh my memory. This shouldn't be as much the case with the Elder Scrolls, and further to that point, the writing style will be more familiar for the team compared to the modern style of Starfield. The lore is also pre-established and plentiful, unlike Starfield where everything had to be made from the ground up. There's only one thing that you can do right now to improve things, and it's the only hope. Fire a meal. If you don't do that, the game is doomed from the start. Don't give me this bullshit about all the experience. No, you've gotta get rid of a meal. That's your only chance. No pandemic, no Microsoft acquisition. Obviously, these things impacted the team to a major extent. Assuming no other huge impacts to Bethesda, that would work in their favor this time. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, unless COVID gave them genuine brain damage and that just disrupted how they make games, this isn't it. It's the fundamentals of Starfield. The way it was designed, 100 planets procedurally generated. It was doomed from the get-go. Don't use the Microsoft acquisition as an excuse. They're very hands-off. They allowed one of your other teams, Arcane, to release Redfall of all titles. So don't pretend like they were meddling and they made it all harder. No, it was your own fault. And he goes on to say, now granted, I'm not saying the game is bound to be amazing. And I personally feel if Emil is left in charge of writing, it'll hold the game back. Okay, so he acknowledges it himself. All the text, the wall of text, everything he says, none of it really matters if Emil is there. So everyone's in agreement. If Emil's at the helm, the game is absolutely doomed. Let's do something about it. That being said, I don't think all hope is lost because of Starfield. I'm still reluctantly hopeful. Well, you keep inhaling that copium, but for the rest of us, we know where things are going. And the top comment here, yeah, I agree, guns, ships, and bases aren't Bethesda's strong points. Are you serious? Guns. They have made more Fallout titles in the last 15 years than they have made Elder Scrolls games. If they can't do guns after this, what makes you think anything else is their strong point? Medieval fantasy is much more up their alley. Is it? Because then we're talking about melee weapons, and they are atrocious in Starfield. It's some of the worst designed areas of the game, and that is saying something. You can count maybe on this hand how many areas of the game are well designed. In fact, that line doesn't even really work. Maybe if I was an amputee and held up my hand, we could correctly count how many strengths Starfield has. But that's enough of these copers. The bus has arrived. They're due back on it. They're due to go back to their institution. And we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.